Okay, well, I really screwed this one up. I had this cool video idea that I started like 2 months ago about how I thought Arlecchino was going to be a perfect fit for Fontaine, and how I was going to confidently predict that she would be in Fontaine and explain all the reasons why. And then this happened. Well, that's an entire video project down the drain, but we can still talk about this. This is purely to salvage the work from the video, which will now never be released. But anyways, let this be a lesson for me to actually finish stuff on time and jump right in. So the Fontaine trailer just dropped yesterday, and oh my god, it is so hype. Very rarely are we treated to animated cinematics of this quality and length. And of course, the drip marketing. There's a lot of things we could talk about here, but since this is the Arlecchino video, we're gonna talk about Arlecchino. Honestly, with all the hints and foreshadowing up to this point, there really was no better place for Arlecchino in the story than Fontaine. We had a decent idea of the kind of story Fontaine would be right from the start. The spectacle of the courtroom, the masquerade of the guilty, and the themes of justice alongside a setting of illusion and deception. Then, of course, there's hints of internal conflict, hints of internal instability, all that stuff. Similarly, both Child and Wanderer speaks of how Arlecchino has something to hide. There's a dark side of her that she allows none to see, and we know she runs an international orphanage. She is perhaps the most deceptively portrayed harbinger of them all. I mean, the literal definition of her title, the Knave, is a dishonest person. Heck, at this point, I'm seriously starting to doubt even her harbinger rank. What if she's actually rank 4? That would be the biggest bamboozle to the Genshin fanbase ever, and given that deception's the name of the game this time around, I can't even rule out that possibility anymore. I also had the feeling that Arlecchino would show up here due to her comments about Pantalone and Pulcinella.
Rosaline died in a foreign land. But you heartless businessmen and dignitaries always with a convenient excuse to remain in the comfort of your homeland. You couldn't hope to understand. So why don't you keep your mouths shut?
That does not sound like a harbinger who's gonna stay home all the time. And along with the fact that there's only 3 nations left for us, and what? The third option is Natlin? Nah, just no. So back to Fontaine. We've already had many hints of Fontaine's problems, but now this trailer confirms for us amongst them that justice in this nation is kind of a joke.
Boring! I mean, why do I even bother? When are we going to finally see a real twist for once?
Hold it!
I swear, this girl has probably played way too much Ace Attorney and now wants to see a real-life trial like that. Such developments are incredibly concerning for the nation of Fontaine because illusions, narratives, spectacles, and lies only seek to misdirect people from the truth. And when there is no truth, there can be no justice. You cannot build justice upon a foundation of lies. And of course, who is better suited to exploit such an environment than the Knave? Based on her dialogue in the trailer, she seems to understand the game pretty well. Not only is she supposedly dishonest herself, she also seems to be quite skilled at detecting the dishonesty of others. A truly dangerous combination. Now, I think I've said enough about how perfect Arlecchino is for Fontaine. So what do I think is in store for her in the main story? Well, first we have to understand that Arlecchino in all likelihood possesses some hidden secret side to herself, as foreshadowed by the Wanderer. But of course, I'm not going to immediately assume she's hiding some predictably evil psychotic persona, since this is still in the context of her role as a Fatui Harbinger. What do I mean exactly by this? Well, in the Commedia dell'arte, aka the source inspiration for the Fatui Harbingers, the original Arlecchino has a thing for betraying his own master to chase his own love interest. There's no guarantee things will turn out the same in Genshin, but it does mean we could get something unpredictable. And the truth is, there's a lot of ambiguity as to the true nature of her work and of the House of Hearth. This isn't like the Scaramouche situation where he's just awful and malicious, period, albeit with a sad backstory. So if she were to become playable, all it would really take is some traitorous treachery and some nuance given as a character. Although this has to be noted that the Traveler and the Fatui aren't really direct enemies. So Arlecchino joining the Traveler's side isn't technically a betrayal, but since Fontaine is going to be a story built around twists and illusions, something interesting needs to facilitate such an event. It can't be like for Tartaglia where he just joined one day because, hey, you fight good, let's be friends. But one thing's for sure, we all want Arlecchino to be playable. I mean, most of us at least. And the good news is, an exciting twist is pretty much required for such a thing to happen. I have a feeling that the twist that Farina is looking for will involve Arlecchino in a big way. Of course, we also kinda need that weekly boss, and then there's the fact that there's 6 Harbingers left with only 2 nations outside of Fontaine. So naturally comes the question of whether someone else will be involved, because right now there's no definitive answer on whether we'll get a second Harbinger, and even then, who that will be. Fingers crossed for Columbina, of course. Now, whether another Harbinger will accompany Arlecchino into Fontaine's story is a pretty major decision to make. If she does end up being the lone Harbinger of Fontaine, then we technically have 7 to 8 Harbingers unaccounted for, with only 2 chapters left until we meet the Tsaritsa herself. By that point, it's pretty much impossible to make the Traveler deal with so many Harbingers in such a short time, which would inevitably mean a good chunk of the Harbingers won't end up in direct conflict with the Traveler. Like, for example, I'm not sure what the story is going to do with Dottore at this point. Are we just gonna, fight him and bring justice or something? If so, how exactly are we going to get there? There's just so many questions surrounding the role of future Harbingers at the moment. It doesn't seem particularly realistic that we'll fight 7 of them across the next 2 chapters, seeing as the current pattern only has us fight 1 per saga. So this is something to keep an eye out for in Fontaine. But I think that's the end of this rant of mine. For all the aforementioned topics surrounding Arlecchino, right now I think she's just the most important character in the Fontaine saga. Betraying the Tsaritsa would be a huge deal. None of the Harbingers we've met actually pulled a betrayal. Wanderer just quit after he got beat and learned about Dottore's role in his past. Child and Dottore are still loyal, and Signora is dead, but she died loyal. But also whether another Harbinger is featured here is important because it'll determine the roles of the rest of the Harbingers story-wise. Oh geez, imagine if Arlecchino performs a betrayal by killing another Harbinger in Fontaine. That would really twist things up. So anyways, leave your thoughts. Excited for Fontaine? Have any plans or ideas for Arlecchino? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. Thank you for watching, and see you all in the next one.